Electric vehicle fires are becoming more prevalent as the mode of transportation becomes more popular.
According to recent reports from the Automotive News, electric vehicle registration rose 60% across the country at the start of this year.
NBC 15's Colton Molesky spoke with the Madison Fire Department about new training to address electric car fires.
John, Maria, electric car fires from crashes or accidents present fire departments a unique set of problems, which is why members of the Madison Fire Department have spent the past year designing training specifically to address these fires, from an electric car to an electric bike.
Electric vehicles pose a bit of a different hazard.
Madison firefighter Cameron Gassaway says it's due to the construction of the lithium-ion batteries in the increasingly prevalent electric vehicles.
A regular car fully involved would take less than 500 gallons of water, which is what we carry on our apparatus. And reports of electric vehicle fires, of course, depending on how involved they are, can be anywhere from 1,000 to tens of thousands of gallons.
Gassaway says this can cause a particular problem on a highway without easy access to water, but it also poses a risk to homes. Here's a sobering video from the Gray investigative TV team showing an electric car at a home on fire. As electric transportation expands, Gassaway says there is concern for fires in the home, whether it is a car plugged in or an e-bike.
As these devices get cheaper and get manufactured in places that don't do regular testing on their battery processes.
Gassaway says when on fire, lithium-ion batteries can burn for up to 72 hours, and the placement makes it incredibly hard to get to, prompting new training and tech for fire departments.
There's a company now that is using like a portable dumpster type looking thing. You basically pull it up in front of the car that's on fire, use a tow truck or something to push the vehicle in. It's got a door that opens up, close it, it's sealed, and then you essentially flood the thing. And there's also some other companies who are in the early stages of development of devices that actually pierce through the bottom into the battery pack and then distribute the water in the battery pack.
Gassaway says the department hopes to start implementing some of the new training at the start of 2023, teaching firefighters how to get water more directly to the battery to stop the continued burn. He adds people can also help themselves by only purchasing e-bikes or scooters that are Underwriters Laboratory tested. The items will have a UL Lab sticker on their tested products. In studio, Colton Molesky, NBC 15 News.